Welcome to the Cash Flow Couple Podcast. I am your hostess with the mostest, Wendy Williams. How you doing? Here with my husband, John Williams.
And I'm here, and we're not broadcasting from the basement this episode.
Nope.
We are actually broadcasting from the garage,
Right.
our second favorite location to hang out.
And it's so nice. It's got a nice, cool breeze blowing. And
It is. So you've been saying this like sunny South Charlotte for like forever, but it's been like cold as crap. But now it's actually, I call this summer. I know it's technically spring.
It feels like summer. It was hot as poop out
You're
there
trying
today.
to think of something you can say.
Trying to keep it PG over here.
You're not allowed to say balls or...
Hot as balls. Well, I usually say colder than a witch's titty in a brass bra.
Yeah, but it's warm though.
But
So
it's
that's a cold
I got to come
expression.
up with something else for hot.
Hot as Hades.
Hot as Hades. That's
Yeah, we can't say the stuff we normally would say.
no,
We think it's funny, but I'm sure it'll offend somebody, so we just won't say it.
no. We better not. Uh-oh. And the dog's barking.
And the dog's barking.
Of
So
course.
this is what happens when you sit in the garage and we bask in the nice warm weather.
It's nice because you can hear the frogs out in the marshy area.
Yeah, we do. So we have a kind of a, but they're doing away with that. So in our neighborhood, basically they're doing away with we had retention ponds. So it's a newer neighborhood. So we had retention ponds, and now they're making them detention ponds. I can't remember
What's the
one's dry
opposite?
and one's wet. That's all I know. And they're turning it from the wet ones to the dry ones.
It was so nice because we got to watch all the ducks and the geese, and we had a really cool big crane. He was awesome.
Yeah, he was cool.
Wasn't he?
He was really cool.
But at least we get to still hear the frogs.
For now,
and
yes.
so, and we have a frog family, Fred the frog, and there's Wilma over there. So it's kind of nice to sit out. And this is my thinking chair, so I feel more comfortable in my thinking chair.
Yes.
So last week we talked about crap. What did we talk about last week?
Oh, come on. You remember.
It was being uncomfortable.
That's right.
Yes, that's right.
We
And
mentioned Stacy Cross again.
that's right. Yes, yeah. So this week we thought we would talk about failure is not an option.
Which I think the previous episode leads very much into this one. And we talked about that earlier, but I think that's a really cool way to segue into this one, because we were talking about being comfortable, and now we're talking about failure is not an option. And it's something that I've observed, that those where they can't be comfortable, we talked about that last time, is, if you have the job, you have the paycheck or whatever, and you're kind of can be comfortable, you are comfortable, and it keeps you, it kind of prevents you from having success. And I've noticed that those that don't have that safety net, don't have that comfort level, tend to be the people that succeed because they have no other option. And that's very much goes along with the phrase, failure is not an option, right? And it's not for those folks. So it's something that I've observed.
Oh, yeah, that's interesting. I like that.
Yeah,
That's
I think
super
it's a
cool.
really cool phenomenon. And I think it's something that keeps a lot of people from succeeding, because they, not to go back to the last episode, but they are comfortable in that where they are now, and they're afraid to get out of that comfort zone because there's safety in it. And a lot of folks, they have that safety net pulled away, and all of a sudden they're literally, failure is not an option. Burn the boats is another way to say it. There's a lot of different phrases out there, but those are the folks that I see succeeding because they have to. They have to eat. They have rent to pay. They have to go out and do something.
I think we would probably fall into that category.
We're getting very close to that category. Yes, having the baby.
Yes.
The flip that, but we're finally on the market now.
It's finally done. Like, seriously done.
Yeah. So Wendy has it listed,
Yep.
and it should go quickly.
We had an open house yesterday. I'm really hoping that this house is going to be sold fairly quickly.
Yeah, I think it will. We've
I
had
think
several
so.
showings on it already.
Yeah.
This is Charlotte Metro, so it's actually in Concord,
Right.
which is just outside of Charlotte, but it's still a hot market. The house will go quickly, but that's the kind of thing you run into when you're flipping houses and you're waiting for that next check. This one was delayed, right?
Yep.
So that becomes a problem if that's what you're depending on for your income. So that's one of the reasons why we're so like, don't flip houses, just don't.
I like to call ourselves rehabilitated rehabbers.
I call it reformed.
Reformed. I like rehabilitated.
But we won't be reformed until we actually get rid of this one and then say, okay, we're not doing that again.
But we can still help people and use that knowledge that we have.
Well, that's so true. I mean, we came across an opportunity last week that was like a really good flip. And I'm out here in the garage. So I'm thinking, you know what? I could just get hard money for that. I have private lenders for that or
Don't
whatever.
do it.
There's like 80 grand in this property. All we have to do is go in and do this, and this because we've been down that path.
Focus.
Exactly. And so I had to kind of back away from the ledge and say, okay, let's not do that.
That's right. It's not our investor identity anymore.
Exactly. But like you said, we can still take that knowledge. And since you're a licensed agent, you have buyers that are looking for flip properties. So let's help them, right? Let's use, the resources we have to help them go flip the property if that's what they're into. And then you can still make less. Obviously, you're not going to make the
but
money
we don't have to do any of the work.
That's true. Yes. So we kind of take the risk out of it. So just be the agent, play that role, and get a smaller check, but none of the risk, none of the pitfalls and all that sort of thing.
Right. So we don't have all our money tied up in one property.
Right. Yes.
So.
Or being worried about how we're going to pay our private money off, even if you don't have your own money in it.
Right.
It's one of those things where
leverage.
It never goes perfectly.
Never
even
does.
for people that I talk to people all the time that's what they do, and no project goes perfectly.
Never does.
So even when you're a big time guy like that, you've got other stuff that kind of covers you, and you're running it as a business and all that, but.
There's always something.
There's always something.
There's always something.
There's always something. Yep. So off my soapbox about that. So today's episode is about failure is not an option.
Yes.
And that wasn't an option for us on this
That's
trip.
right.
We finally got through it.
We could have and probably should have done something else with those, because one of our mentors told us from the very beginning, and that's one of the lessons that I have learned on this flip, because we learned something from every single flip.
Oh yeah, for sure.
For this one, my number one lesson is listen to your mentors.
Yes, because that's why you're paying them, right?
Yes.
They've been there before. They've been ahead of you. They're a chapter ahead, as we say. And we basically didn't listen.
No,
and we should have listened.
We should have. Yes.
We should have just turned around and wholetailed it.
Yes, we should have. Yes.
And wholetailing just means you buy it, you close on it, and then maybe you do a little bit, but you don't actually rehab it like you would if you were going to flip it.
Right. Like kind of fix all the little things that come up on an inspection.
Right. Because this property, it wasn't bad. I mean, it was outdated. No, it had some issues that needed to be repaired, but we didn't need to spend $60,000 on it. I mean, we could have spent much less and just turned around and stuck a sign in the yard,
which is what he told us to do.
And we should have listened. And we'd have been out of this property 6 months ago.
Yes.
Right. And on to something else.
Yes. Oh well, live and learn. That is the major lesson that I learned on this flip. But anyway,
that's something you add to your toolbox.
Yes,
I mean,
exactly.
That's what's going to happen.
Exactly.
You're going to have stuff go wrong, and for us, failure wasn't an option, and we don't have the option of failing this property. We have to get it across the finish line.
Yes,
but maybe we should have chosen to do it differently.
Yes,
is all we're saying.
Yes,
but we did get across the finish line. We did finish it. Failure was an option. And we got there.
That's true. We did not give up on this property.
No, and I was ready to give up a couple of times.
Yes, you were. You were.
I was
John's
like, come on, let's just stick the sign in the yard. We're done.
That's right, you did. You tried to get the sign in the yard as soon as possible.
But we didn't, and we got it done, and we'll make good money on it.
Yeah, we persevered. We sure did, but we earned every single penny.
We definitely earned every single penny on that property.
Yes.
But it's because failure wasn't an option.
It was
we had
not.
to get it done.
We had to get it done. Exactly. Yes. So, when I think about, because you hear this, failure is not an option all the time, right? So, but when I think about failure, I think about, it makes me think about not giving up. It makes me think not giving up is not an option. Does that make any sense?
It does. I think it's deeper than, you know where the saying comes from.
No, I don't.
So we,
Tell me, Obi-Wan.
Obi-Wan. oh, wise one.
Oh, wise one.
Help me, Obi-Wan. You're my only hope.
You're my only hope.
No, so CJ and I think I mentioned this on a previous episode, but CJ, our son, he's in 5th grade this year, and I was a chaperone on the 5th grade field trip
to
Washington, D.C.
Washington, D.C.
So we went to Washington, D.C., and one of my favorite places to go in Washington, D.C., there are great places to go, but one of my favorite places to go is the Air and Space Museum, which is part of the Smithsonian. And in there, they have a gift shop, just like they do in every Smithsonian. And I went in there, and they had this whole, not kiosk, but whole section of failure is not an option gear, right?
I'm surprised you didn't buy a sweatshirt.
They had T-shirts. They didn't have sweatshirts.
I'm surprised you didn't buy a T-shirt.
I bought various other things. So
you did buy a poster.
I bought a poster. I bought a mug. I actually bought 2 posters because I gave one to a friend of ours here, and then I brought one home, and I bought a mug, and I bought a refrigerator magnet.
And a magnet.
So I wanted these things in my line of sight as I go through my day.
That's cool.
Right?
Yeah.
So that's why I got the refrigerator magnet, because we have the refrigerator out here in the garage, and we spend a lot of time out here in the mornings drinking our coffee and whatnot. And so I wanted to see that as I went in and out of the door to the house, because the refrigerator is just to the left of the door. So I wanted that in my line of sight. And then I got the poster because I wanted to place that in another prominent place. And then I got the mug because we drink coffee in the morning, and I wanted to pull that mug out and see that the first thing in the morning. But the phrase itself, the reason it's in the Smithsonian, it comes from the Apollo 13 mission.
Oh.
So there's a movie. That's the one with Tom Hanks.
Yeah, I remember that movie.
And it was the Apollo mission, and they probably should have skipped over 13 and just gone to 14 like they do with like skyscraper floors. You know how you go up in a building and they have like a 12, there's no 13.
Superstitious.
Yeah. But they had an Apollo 13 and it went bad. And they were supposed to go to the moon and like land on the moon just like the other Apollo missions. But something went wrong, and basically what they did was they actually had to fly to the moon and just like go around the thing and come back. So if you've seen the movie, it's very interesting what they decided to do. But one of the quotes in the when they were consulting for the movie, they were interviewing the guy that was the flight director for that mission, and what he said was, they said, like, what did you do when you realized, oh crap, things went wrong, and these guys are out in space? It's not like you can just drive out there and get them, right? And he said, well, we had to keep calm and explore all of our options. It's just that failure wasn't one of them. So he never said failure is not an option. That's the way he put it. And so they had to they say, oh, that's great. Let's use that phrase for the theme of the movie. And then later he wrote a book about it. And so the title of the book is Failure is Not an Option, but he didn't actually say those exact words.
Okay.
He phrased it the other way. We knew we had options, but failure wasn't one of them.
Oh, okay.
And that's a valid way of saying it as well. But failure is not an option is such a better catchphrase, right?
Yeah, for
so
sure.
They kind of took it that. But I thought that was interesting, and it was very true for them. And it kind of ties back to what I was saying about somebody that no longer has their safety net. and has to succeed, it's like do or die. Failure is not an option. And it's exactly the same way with this. They were headed to the moon. There's no like, emergency brake, turn around and come back. I mean, they just don't have that option.
So what happened? Were they supposed to land on the moon?
Yeah, it was a mission to the moon, just like, John Glenn, or not John Glenn, but Neil Armstrong. That's the famous one, right? When they first went and landed on the moon.
Yeah.
A lot of people don't realize that we went to the moon multiple times after that and landed in different spots and different things. Well, Apollo 13 was one of those missions that was supposed to land on the moon, but it went wrong on en route, and they couldn't just turn around and come back. That failed. That wasn't an option. But then it wasn't an option for them just to die out there either.
Sure.
So they had to come up with, different ways of doing it. If you watch the movie, it's really interesting what they did. Like they evaluated what they had and kind of repurposed things.
Oh, that's cool.
To get them back and let them survive the journey and all this. Because part of what went wrong is they lost a lot of their oxygen and lost life support systems.
Ooh, that would be scary.
Yeah. So they were literally going to
suffocate,
die if they just didn't come up with some kind of solution. But the guys on the ground are the ones that are in charge of coming up with those solutions and then saying, hey, go do this, right? But for them, it was like, hey, we had to stay calm. We had to evaluate all of our options and see what we had to work with. It's kind of like that, use what you have to get what you need to get what you want type thing.
That's cool.
That we talk about, but in the context of this mission. And so then they had to say, what are we going to do? Failure's not an option. Let's figure it out.
Right. That's
and so
really cool.
That translates very well to what we were talking about. So it's a fascinating thing. I haven't read the book yet. I would like to, but the key, I saw this wall and everything was, white letters with black background. Failure is not an option. I was like, I've got to buy some of this stuff.
That's cool.
Because it means, that phrase means a lot to me, and going back to, the others people I've seen succeed have taken that attitude, and it's not just an attitude, it's very true for them. I know I have a good friend of mine I'll say a good friend, somebody I've known for a while online, okay, that kind of got started around the same time that we did, and this particular fellow lost his job, and he had a decision to make. Do I go find another job, or do I just go all out on real estate? And he decided, I'm just going all out in real estate, and he made it because he had to. So he went out, started wholesaling, started collecting checks, and today he's a successful person because he had to be. Failure was not an option for him. He didn't have another source of income. He had to. It wasn't wake up today and go to work and then come back and then, I don't feel like it today. I'll just watch Netflix, right? He didn't have that option.
Well, it's kind of the same boat that we're in, because we don't have any other. We've already quit both our jobs.
Well, that's true.
So, the kids got to eat something.
That's right. And mentors of ours have talked about, this is Taylor and Ed, have talked about runways and how you have a certain amount of time to lift off, and then you run out of runway, and you got to do. There's a do or die point, right?
Well, that's all about taking action.
It is, but it's about taking action, and is the action working? And at some point, you have to say, we're not going to lift off. This isn't working. And we talk, and being a pilot, there's a point on the runway called the point of no return. So at some point, you can go down the runway, and you still have enough runway left to turn the engines off, hit the brakes, and stop. But there's a point along the runway where you've gone so far that if you try to do that, you're going to run off the end of the runway and crash, and it's the point of no return. And so once you get past that point, it's kind of like failure is not an option, and you can relate that to your business. If you're trying and trying and trying and you're not getting off the ground, but you're building speed, at some point you're going to pass the point of no return, and you have to make that decision at that point. Do I keep going
Or hit the brakes.
And try something else. And for us, we're kind of past the point of no return.
Well,
we have to succeed. So for us, failure is not an option. So that's why had to get that. We got the flip done. I mean, we don't have a choice.
No, we don't have a choice. No.
And when we get done with that, we've got to go do something else.
Yep.
Because we're not going to eat if we don't.
Exactly. So that's a cool story. I like that story about Apollo. It's interesting to see how history and learning about history and knowing about history can help you in your daily life, like the present. That's interesting. You've always been a history buff, though.
Well, I have, yeah. My mom was a history teacher, so she taught. She was a great teacher. I don't say that just because she was my mom, but she taught as a story.
See, if my history teachers had done that, I would have liked history a whole lot more. But it was more memorizing dates and all that. I don't really care about that.
Yeah, but that's not the part that really matters.
I know.
In my opinion.
Well, nowadays I got to teach to the test, but don't get me on my soapbox on that.
Yeah, I know. But you'll find that the body of knowledge is history, right? I mean, everything that's ever happened is the body of knowledge. So if you study history, you end up knowing a lot of stuff.
That's cool because I'm reading this book. It's called Why We Want You to Be Rich, and it's written by Donald Trump and Robert Kiyosaki.
Oh yeah, that's one of my Goodwill finds.
That's right. You got this at Goodwill.
Yes. So when we go to Goodwill, yes, we shop at Goodwill because they have good prices on stuff. And they have a book section.
That's right.
Where you can buy paperbacks for 99 cents. And
plus,
hardbacks for $1.39, just so you know. But every time we go there, I go to the book section, and this is one of the books I picked up.
I go there because the kids grow out of their clothes so fast. I don't want to have to pay.
Well, yeah, I mean that totally makes sense. I mean, why go to the Gap when they're going to outgrow it?
They're just going to outgrow it, sure. So this first edition was published in December 2007, which is interesting, but
it is.
But in the book, they talk about the importance of history and how they use history as a guidebook. So because they say that knowledge is power, which is interesting. I really like that. And one of the stories that Donald Trump was talking about was his dad used to tell him this story when he was little, and the story was about a guy who loved Coke. Well, not Coke in particular. I'm from the South, so every soda is Coke to me, regardless of what it is. Maybe I should say soda. This guy loved soda, and so he thought he would start a soda business, and he came up with a product called 3-Up, and it failed. And then he started another company with another product called 4-Up, and it failed. So he decided to start up another company, named it 5-Up, and guess what? It failed. And then he started another one, 6-Up, and it failed. And then he gave up. And then somebody else took his ideas and made 7-Up. Isn't that funny?
I gotta wonder if that's a real story.
I don't know if it is, but
I mean, I like the parable of it.
That's what I like about it.
I'm sure it does teach a story, but I'm not sure that's factual, like it actually happened. But I do like the story of it. Have you seen that meme of the guy that's digging the tunnel?
With the pickaxe.
Yeah,
and he's almost reached the. What was it?
It's always like
gold
a stash of like gold or
like
diamonds
yes.
or whatever they're
that's
mining.
That's exactly
for, right?
what it makes me think of.
And he gives up like right before he gets there.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yep. So that's why I think that being stubborn is a good trait to have.
Because you don't give up?
Because you don't give up. I'm a very stubborn person. But I do not give up. If I want something, it's just like I really wanted to get my real estate broker license, and I studied my butt off, and I was not going to failure was not an option for me.
Yeah,
I knew,
like you weren't going to ever say, no, I wasn't able to do it.
Right. No, it was
that
not.
Didn't even come up in the conversation.
No, it did not. But I was so stubborn about getting it done that it got done. But it got done because I persevered through all the math.
Yeah, and you're not a math person.
No, I had to do math.
But I think you probably did better on the math section
think so
than
too,
any other section because
I studied it so
Exactly.
much. Yes, and I studied it. I did it over and over and over again until I figured it out. And I did it myself. I had to teach myself how to do it.
And you passed the first time.
Yep, I sure did.
Because for you, failure was not an option.
Yes, exactly.
Like you had to pass it.
Yep.
And I think you have to have that attitude.
You really do.
And it has to be real, though. You can't just go around saying failure is not an option and then it is. It's a thing in your head where failure cannot be an option for you.
It is a mindset.
I think it's totally a mindset
thing.
I agree. That's why I mention these folks that like literally failure is not an option for them because they believe it because it's real. It's right in front of them. But I think a lot of people say that, but they don't really believe it because they know that failure is an option. It's a path they can take. And I think that hinders them. I think it holds you back if you let yourself believe that.
Well, yeah, if you're comfortable, then it is going to be an option because you got something to fall back on, right?
You think that goes to your why?
Oh, for sure. Yes.
Like if your why isn't strong enough, then failure is an option.
Yep.
But if it's really strong, then failure is not an option for you. It's something that you have to have. You're going to have it.
Have we talked about what our whys are?
I think we have. I don't want to put it on this broadcast.
No.
That's going down the rabbit hole.
Oh, yeah, that's right. That's a good idea. We got to say focus. Focus.
So I would say that, you have to look deep inside yourself and ask that question to yourself. Is that really true for me? Is failure not an option? Do I want this bad enough, no matter what it is? Do I want it bad enough to where failure is literally not an option for me? And it has to be so strong. And I think that goes back to your why, that you never let it go. You just don't. You're persistent about it. You look at like the Apollo 13 thing. You look at all your options and figure out how you're going to make it work. But failure is not one of your options. You have to do it. Wouldn't you agree?
Yeah, definitely. I mean, of course. And but it's a personal choice. I mean, nobody can convince you of this. It's something very personal, and you have to figure it out on your own, whether or not it's right for you.
Oh yeah, I totally agree with that. I mean, it's not like you're going to listen to a TD Jakes video and get all motivated, and then that's why I think motivation's kind of bullshit. I mean, maybe we should make that a topic of an episode.
Motivation is bullshit
because it doesn't stick around,
right? Yeah.
How many people go to a conference or go to a 3-day seminar or get really excited about something for a few days and then it doesn't work out and they go to something else? It's because failure was an option for them. Their why wasn't big enough. Their reason why they're doing what they're doing isn't big enough. They don't have a driving force that literally failure is not an option. They have to go and do it.
Yeah, I think that's one reason why we are going to be so successful is, first of all, I'm stubborn.
Well, I'm stubborn too. I'm very persistent.
And when you really focus on something, you don't give up. I mean, when I ask you to open up a lid that is too hard for me to open up, and then you can't get it with your hands, John's like, oh, hell no.
Well, that's not a money-making activity. But
I'm going to get this lid open. And you look at all your options. You look at all your tools.
That's right. But failure is not one of my options. That lid is coming open.
So I was like, here, let's put it in the vice grip.
Oh no, I've got tools. We can make this happen.
And we have lots of tools in our toolbox now.
We do. Like, that's the metaphor. But yeah, we do. We have lots of tools in our toolbox, and you will get those over time by being persistent, by failure is not an option. You got to go figure out something. Carl was talking about that on the podcast we did with him. He would go sign a lease on a Subway store and then just figure it out.
Oh, we've done that before.
So he would put himself in a position where failure wasn't an option. He had to figure it out. And that's why he was successful with it. And we've done it too. We've jumped into stuff that it just has to be done. It has to get done. And I think that's at least for us, that's something that's worked, is to, the phrase is burn the boats. And that comes from, invading the island or whatever, and they would burn the boats so that they couldn't retreat. So they had no option but to succeed, right, and take the island. And that's kind of the metaphor there. But it's the same idea. It's, failure is not an option. And so if you can figure out what that is for you, I think if you can figure out what your why is, or if you can figure out, if you can get yourself in a situation where you have to succeed, that's when you're going to succeed.
That's huge. I really like that your why is so powerful and so motivating that you don't ever give up on it. And they talk a lot about that in this book, this Why We Want You to Be Rich book, about your motivation for being successful.
Yeah, and we hear that from a lot of folks. We talk about that. If you hear it from multiple successful sources, then write that down, right? And that's one of them.
Yeah, well, shoot, if I'm going to hear it from Robert Kiyosaki and Donald Trump, I'm going to freaking write it down. I'm going to take notes.
They're not the only ones. It's
no,
not like
our
they're the only
mentors
ones
say
that
it all
ever
the
said
time.
that, right? It's everybody tells you that's successful, that your why has to be big, that you have to persist, that you have to keep going.
Yeah,
that
everybody tells you that. Any kind of thing that you listen to. Grant Cardone.
Yeah, they'll all tell you the same thing in different ways, but it kind of comes down to failure is not an option.
Yep.
And if failure is an option for you, then you're probably behind the 8 ball. It's going to be harder for you. You laugh. It's going to be harder for you if failure is an option for you, because we're all human, and if we could take the easy route, we're going to take it.
Oh yeah, for sure.
Willpower is not a way to get successful. It's not a way to do anything. It's not a way to quit drinking. It's not a way to lose weight. It's not a way to quit smoking. Willpower is not it. It's your why.
Yes. It's
you have
why.
To want to.
Yes.
Right?
Yes.
And it goes right back to what we were just saying. Failure is not an option. And I think that's very powerful. That's a very powerful thing.
I agree.
All right, wrap this up, Wendy. I could get on my soapbox for another 30 minutes about the same subject.
All right. Well, if you would like to contact us, we have a Facebook page at The Cashflow Couple, and you can email us at a much easier email address. The other one still works, but you can email us at info@thecashflowcouple.com. The website is getting a facelift, so we're working on that at the moment. It's going to be awesome. So thank you for joining us. We hope you found value in this episode. If so, go to our YouTube channel and subscribe to our YouTube channel.
That's also The Cashflow Couple.
Yep, The Cashflow Couple on that too.
So we have some added stuff there. So it's not just the podcast
That's
anymore.
right.
So we have some extra video content
We do.
there.
Yeah.
So you can see our faces if you'd like. But I think that will be of value as well. And it does help us to get subscribers at the YouTube channel as well.
Yeah. Very cool. Very cool. So we appreciate you taking the time to join us this evening. And we'll see you again next time on the next exciting episode of The Cashflow Couple. Merci. À plus.